Wir wechseln von Deutsch auf English. We will switch to English now for our next guests. They come all the way, well, from Berlin and Stockholm. We talked about web series, transmedia, social film. There are quite few words to describe what we are talking about in these 2 days. We've seen crime series, we've seen documentaries, we've seen sci-fi series. And today we are talking also about the opportunity for branded entertainment and for advertisement in the field of online web series and web video. Inc. magazine once called their company in a big piece, they called it the company that's changing advertisement. And the project they are here to talk about reached about 50 million people around the world. Please welcome Jessica Valin, Managing Director and Executive Producer, BeReal in Berlin, and Lars Bjurmann, Executive Creative Director, BeReal in Stockholm.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us to Ludwigsburg. It's been we know that you are the best directors in Germany. Oh. So it's especially nice to see who you are and how you live here. Just a little bit about us, the people who are standing on the stage here. I'm Jessica, and I'm Managing Director and Executive Producer at BeReal in Berlin.
In old school technology, I'm Lars Bjurmann, Executive Creative Director for BeReal Europe and based in Stockholm.
A bit about BeReal. BeReal started in Stockholm 15 years ago by 5 Swedish guys who were quite passionate about storytelling and technology. Today we are 150 people over 6 offices, and they are New York, Los Angeles, Stockholm, London, Barcelona, and Berlin. Berlin is our youngest office. We opened up in Berlin last year in February, and it's of course the most exciting office, as we have great hopes for this market. The project that we are about to look at today, The Beauty Inside, was mainly produced by our LA office. But pretty much every office was involved in the process, one way or the other. In our work, we are trying to bring multiple disciplines together, maybe creative, technology, or filmmaking. And usually, a technology company might be good in making systems, and an ad agency might be good in making ideas, but have no idea about execution. I think our various skills are what makes us unique in this industry. In our work, we're especially interested in the intersection, in finding in the intersection of these disciplines, where we think we find the nerve or the emotional connection that makes people remember what they have experienced. We worship collaborations, and we believe that the best work evolves out of different powerful minds. We don't take on any project. We have a strong integrity. We are very keen on doing things, only doing things, what we believe in. Today we have 3 divisions at BeReal: digital, commercials, and branded content, and then feature films. Digital, you can say that we're pretty much exploring all digital ways of storytelling and all kinds of technologies. Commercials, where we have a roster of commercial directors. We're making classic TV commercials, we're making longer format, shorter format, we're making branded content. Feature films is a separate division where we are focused on, feature film, especially on the Scandinavian market, but as it goes, we are now also working with German productions. We don't have a roster of directors, but we have a number of directors that we have a close relationship with, that we're working on a continuous basis with, and some of them actually origins from our commercial roster and the other way around. We're going to get back to feature film a little bit later. We believe that you're in a good place if you can surprise people with storytelling. And with this slide, we would like to give you an idea of the width of our work. As you can see, there are a lot of different kind of projects. We have done everything from Palme, which is a documentary of the Swedish president that got assassinated in the 80s. We have done huge installation projects with an interaction online for Google, which is called WebLab, which is still on in the London Science Museum.
Yes, it is.
We have done TV commercials, we have done branded content, we have done online games, we have done websites, we have done apps. We're pretty much doing everything as long as the idea is good and as long as it's about powerful storytelling. Just like social film, as we are about to tell you more about in this presentation. First, a little mood film.
So that's a pretty wide world to kind of work in. A lot of different projects, a lot of different technologies and ways to produce. So, but today we're here for take a closer look at social film. And what is that really? It's kind of a fuzzy term. So we'll try to explain that and how we have seen that, and from one single project that we've been working on, but also tell you a little bit about what we have learned about working with social interaction and how to engage people. So, to sum it up, what is a social film? Of course, you need a story to tell. You need something told through moving images. But it also needs an open narrative. You need somewhere there where people can interact and change the outcome of the story. It could be either by changing the direction of the story, or it could be that actually just being modified, content added to it, or just changing color really could be a social film. But there are also two ways of looking at it. It could either be that it is kind of a collaborative work, that you actually collaborate on making a film together, adding to a storyline, or it could be a kind of a personal social film as well. And this is the other way around, where you get your own personal customized experience to share. And an example of that is, I mean, a couple of years ago there was a lot of sites popping up where you could actually upload your own face. That's actually from a photo, and then you could kind of get a film, kind of a film trailer with yourself in it, which became a kind of something for you to share and became a social discussion. So we're actually able here to play against Benicio del Toro. So, but today we're going to look at something that is more of a collaborative experience, something where people are actually adding to a common or one storyline and building it together. And if we look historically, interactive entertainment, it's not really new. It's been there since these guys. It was a way for them to build a story and have the audience to kind of change the outcome of a story. Quite dramatic, though. I think it was pretty popular. And through times, there's been other ways for people to try this concept and try to evolve it. There have been, I mean, like interactive theater, like Cluedo, where the audience is invited to choose who's the murderer and kind of play this role-playing game with the actors on stage. Or there's been interactive novels where you actually can, go from page to page to change the outcome of the story and jump around to build your own choices within the storyline. Or in later years, Big Brother, that is, even though it's kind of reality, it is an example of a social storyline that you make your choices. One of the most interesting pieces is relating back to the Romans up and down is actually a feature film from the 60s by William Castle, who actually had an interactive segment to it. The audience were giving this glow-in-the-dark little notes with a thumbs up or thumb down. And depending on how, at one point in the story, it's kind of a horror story really, and it's about this horrible person doing a lot of really bad things. And towards the end of the story, the film stops, and the director actually kind of pops up and says, so how do you want this story to end? Do you want it to kill him, or do you want it to kind of save him and make him good again? And the audience holds up their glow-in-the-dark little notes, and then they change the story to the outcome of the audience choice, which, from what I understand, never ended with them with a happy ending. All the times they wanted to kill him because he was such a horrific person. So the question is, was there a happy ending at all? Did they shoot the double ending? No one knows. But there have been these tries through time to make this kind of social action or interactive ways to control the outcome of a story. The problem has always been that it's never been too fast, or it's not been quite engaging to change that story. But today, with everything that we have at our hands, technology-wise, channel-wise, and the way we can interact with everything, this combination of techniques and tools totally make us able to do so much more. We can use the visual ingredients and the power of the visuals together with the game mechanics, for example, to build kind of this interactive mechanics or like a back end where you actually can interact much faster. And of course the social media ingredients where it's like you as a person standing out and taking part of something that becomes extremely close and extremely personal. But before we go into the Beauty Inside case, there's a kind of a backstory to it, because we did a project in 2011. That was a year before we did this Beauty Inside. This was also together with the agency that we also work with, Pereira, and for the same client. So they have this series where they always refer to the inside, because the inside is, of course, the client's product is the processor of a computer. So it's the inside that always counts. And this was another thing that we did the year before with another theme to it. Wow, that computer is amazing, right? No, this was more of a thriller kind of experience. The audience was invited to try to change the story and to give her clues and to push her forward and totally interact with her. But in this case, the theme is so much easier to work with. I think horror and that kind of suspense thriller, that really evokes feelings that are extremely, basic in all of us. So it's really easy to get people going. The other effect of the involvement from people are that when doing a thing like this, you always have to think about the consequences of inviting your audience. You will have reactions, and a lot of these reactions that we saw in the case film were awesome, but there was some others as well. And it's not about that they thought it was really, a bad story or badly produced. It's rather about actually when you invite people to engage, and you engage them for so long and so deep, they definitely want to have that kind of promise delivered of a good ending and a good story. And in this case, there was it was kind of a letdown for some people. I'm mad at you. Who do this first? I like. What's good with this is, of course, also you get a lot of feedback and you can learn from it. But I mean, it's not nice that these things pop up. It was a very, very small portion of the reactions to the story. Most people really enjoyed it and liked it. But this feedback also gives us, the reasons to refine things and do it better. So when we got our hands on the next project, there was a totally different theme to it.
Just like Lars said, horror is a quite thankful topic for interaction. I mean, people tend to be proactive when you put fear into them. How about putting love into them? I don't think people are that proactive about love. It's a bit of a difficult topic, and that's what we were trying to figure out with the beauty inside. So going back to when we first got the brief from Pereira, who is still the advertising agency for Intel and Toshiba. This was in late January, and the campaign was set to launch in July, which is approximately 7 months. In comparison to making a feature film, this is, of course, a pretty long time to do a commercial. When Pereira came in to say to us, what they said to us basically when they came to us was, how can we invite the audience to participate in the film? And they had this idea that they wanted to share with us. They wanted to, they asked us, imagine waking up every day with a new face, a new body, and as a completely new person. How would this work? This would enable us to invite the audience in one way, if anyone could play Alex. We set out to figuring out how this would technically work and how it would work narratively wise. They also wanted to do a long format split into 6 episodes. We felt this was a great concept, and we felt that we had to win this project. And please bear in mind, this is still a pitch. So what we did was that we went out to look for a director that was gonna do the job. In our roster, within the commercial roster, we have a lot of directors, super talented, but they're used to telling stories between 15 and 45 seconds. And this time we were talking about something that would be up to 60 minutes approximately, but divided into 6 episodes. We first worked with the United Talent Agency's digital division to help us find the right director. And we were looking around a lot. We found our guy, Drake Doremus, the smiling guy here. He was just winning Sundance that year before with this film Like Crazy, and he's obsessed with the topic love. So we felt that this was a great fit. We thought we're going to show you a little bit of his work and the trailer for Like Crazy. Have anyone seen Like Crazy? This is based on Drake's own experience. When we approached Drake for this project, The Beauty Inside, he got super excited, not just because of the topic, but also the challenge of telling a story in a different format. Inviting the audience would be an enormous challenge for a director who has only experience working with talents, actors. We drafted the writer Richard Greenberg, and he was working with Drake throughout the whole production. First of all, defining the script, and then also helping Drake to like push the story forward. Because again, there was a storyline, but it kept changing due to the audience.
So after the first initial treatment and the script writing, we also, parallel to this, we had to find a structure for how to tell the story. And this is what we do in what we call the scoping phase, to get the size of the story, but also get the size of the production and all, because building kind of platforms and building the digital, the interactive experience also needs to be planned. So we definitely want to break things down and define it very, very thoroughly. And we, in this process, we invite more or less everybody that will be involved, from programmers to build the websites, or it's also motion graphics. It's back-end programming for how do we upload films and everything. Everybody needs to be involved in this to be able to pull this off. This is one of the kind of first structures that we built for how you were actually able to cast and to participate, and how we would release that over time. It was a shorter period there. or we had an idea we could actually present this on double timelines. You actually would see on Facebook, you could see kind of snippets that we then weaved together into episodes on YouTube. So it was more kind of a broken up way where you could see pieces or you could see the full kind of episodes. Didn't work. So we also looked at other versions. We had a big casting phase, and then we kind of released these little trailers, and then for just 1 week, every day we released episodes. Didn't either work. So also looking at the structure of how to experience this on a website, maybe not the most inspiring thing to look at, but you definitely have to understand where these things live and how you kind of interact with them and how you are presented with the content. Should it live on Facebook? Should it be on YouTube? Depending on you know what these platforms can offer you when it comes to interaction and social interaction. And also, I mean, there's so many things to take in consideration. For example, this is a global project from the beginning, so we had 13 markets to deliver this to. We had 8 languages. So, I mean, when you invite all these markets, when you have 13 countries and people from 13 countries, kind of different languages speaking in these, you know, auditions that we will get into later, there's a lot of moderation, you know, bad contributions, people are naked, you know, need to have an idea of how to handle this beforehand. But eventually, we kind of found a model. We found a way to do this. This is kind of a schedule that we set up for how we, in the beginning, we are doing a lot of little castings, and then we deliver those in little pieces and little episodes involving, you can see up there, there's like the bigger pieces with a man and a woman there. There's what every single episode, what it should contain. And every little kind of submission being sent out on different channels. So we ended up with a 6-week period of this campaign where we released a new episode every week. We invited the audience to cast during the weeks, and then we edited this on the fly. So every week, the night before, we actually took the submissions, and we have, of course, I mean, we had a casting process from our side. We chose the best submissions, we edited them into the film itself the night before we released all of these episodes. So it was on the fly, and it was kind of a living production going on. I think we're going to take a little look at more of a case study or kind of a breakdown on how this works and see a little bit more how these submissions are integrated into the film.
So how are we supposed to leave, so how are people supposed to leave their contributions to the casting process? Quite simply, actually. It was important to focus on the acting here and rather than the technology. So we kind of chose a Facebook page where we launched a service for everyone to basically go online and audition themselves. So we gave them guidelines. They had to record themselves against white background, look into the camera, no logos were allowed, and they had to always end with, that's it for me.
So just to explain, it was kind of a Facebook application on Facebook, and you used your own web camera from your computer to cast to.
Alex, as he was waking up as a new person every morning, he was making a diary on his laptop, and that is the diary that everyone in the audience could create themselves. And this is an example of how to take part of the script online. So you could choose your outline here, and then you were supposed to sort of improvise around it. So the best or worst pickup line I ever heard. And then you have to just come up with it yourself. Pretty much share everything that was that you could relate to this task. We we felt that it was important to create a good mix between, you know, real people and actors. So we had also actors on set that was making these kind of diaries. So we set up like stations where they can also record themselves with laptops and basically do the same thing as everyone else in the audience. We also tried to find sort of various ways of engaging the audience everywhere. Since it was a global campaign, it was important to reach out to everyone. And there were like local initiatives. For example, in China, they had a sort of a competition, and the winner of that competition could go to the set in LA and take part of the film production there. Drake also had a lot of sort of passion when he looked at all these submissions from the audience, and sometimes he felt that one person was really good in acting out some emotions, and he immediately took like Skype calls with those people and directed over Skype. It was a very elaborative phase. So the selection process and how that looks like, the submission sort of goes to the casting assistants. They look at them, they approve them to see that there are no like naked people or, you know, people saying something really crazy or weird. They star them, they mark them, and then all these approved submissions goes to a gallery, and this sort of gallery is viewed by the director, Intel and Toshiba, and Pereira, and of course BeReal, and then we together select 30 out of those. Then there will be 5 picked in the end. I mean, there's so many stages here, but it was important to filter out all these submissions. Some videos were sort of created then on set and also on this Facebook page, as we were mentioning.
So, just explain how all this content is included in the film. It could be either still images, it could be these video diaries recorded on set, or it could be actual video diary castings done by people on Facebook, real people. There was normally one of these auditions that was picked as the hero audition. And of course we had, in the end, a really long credit list. Over 100 different Alexes were included in these 6 episodes. So a little bit about the shooting of this. It started out as being a kind of a global story. I mean, we started out big. You always want to do that. So we planned about, you know, traveling around the world, shooting in 6 locations: Paris, London, Tokyo, I can't remember it. But of course, reality checks in, and for budget reasons, everything was scaled down to be shot in LA, and the whole story is told and enacted in LA, which is, of course, a great place to shoot a film. And we shot over 6 days, and it's a 45-page script that we went through, so it's about 7 to 8 pages a day, which is pretty much. And of course, this took 6 months, and that was all planning. That was all kind of production planning, but of course a lot of the involvement of the technical planning, the setup of how to, you know, make this work mechanically, but also how to kind of treat it and get the tone right, and really honing in on that emotional bond that we needed to get to the audience. And that was, of course, Richard Greenberg's and Drake Doremus' biggest challenge in all this. And we ended up shooting for 6 days for 6 months planning. And I mean, we had really nice locations. One of the best ones really pops out is this from the Los Angeles Natural History Museum. So really nice locations. So all of this, I mean, you've seen the kind of result, and you've seen how we kind of plan this and how we do it, and it of course, it was a hit in so many ways. But we have made a lot of learnings from this thing as well. Things that worked out well for us, even better than the horror sequel that or prequel that we did the year before. And these are some of the learnings that we made to think about when you plan and when you kind of build the concept and when you write the story like this. First of all, you have to respect the audience. You have to invite the audience, because that's the whole goal with it, but you have to respect them so they get something out of it in the end. You need to be clear of how and when people are able to interact and what you're going to be using that material for. Also, kind of the basics, you have to explain to them what it is you're going to be producing. I mean, you're releasing this trailer and you invite people and they don't really know what it's going to be. Is it a film or is it a kind of a short series, or it could be a game for all they know? And also, for like in any film really, how it ends will be very, very important. And as we saw from the reactions earlier, it's like from a film, the end is kind of the most important part of a film really, but also with a social film, this disappointment or this kind of happiness about the ending will be so much bigger once they engage fully into it. And there's, I mean, through the years when doing kind of digital films, there's always been this view on it being, you know, kind of production efficient, trying to keep it kind of cheaper, not going into full kind of feature film style. But to make this work, you definitely have to think about it as a full production. You have to keep the quality, the story, the talent involved. You have to keep that top level, otherwise it won't come across. It's still the same challenges as making a feature or a TV series. And also, you have to think about, again, how to treat this subject. As we said, for the first thing we did was horror, so that's fear and suspense, really easy to latch on to. But then again, if we're doing the second, the beauty inside, it's much more of a softer story. It speaks to these softer emotions, strong emotions though, and it really need to have a way to open up and make it into a conversation that is much more on an emotional level. And that thing, to invite to emotions, these kind of emotions are really, really hard. But once you get there, that bond that you create with the audience is so much stronger. It's something that you actually carry with you for a longer period. And this is probably the most important piece of them all, is to think social from the beginning. It needs to be like part of the story. It needs to be part of the DNA of the story, and that's what we had in this production. Since Alex could be anyone, from the storyline itself, what the story was about, the insight that counts, that has to be included. It can't be just something that you slap on at the end. So okay, we have this great, action movie. Let's throw in some, extras. You can sign up to be an extra on set, or you post them in somewhere in the background. It needs to be kind of in the storyline itself and interweaved. And you need to let your people co-create, not only to kind of upload their submissions, their photos. You need to let them actually affect the story. In this case, we do that by they're actually delivering something that represents themselves. They're kind of ad-libbing around this subject that we give them, but they still have to perform. They still have to find a story that they can tell in their own way and being very, very personal. And that is more co-creating than just submitting. And I mean, the hard thing here is that you still, as a director, you have a story to tell, and you still have to invite people to be able to change that story. And it's kind of a balance, and you really have to treat that really delicately. And the last point is engagement layers, and this is about how we give more than one way for people to interact. Of course, I mean, what we've seen here with the auditions and everybody's kind of little films that they record on themselves, that's the top level. but there needs to be easier ways to engage as well. It needs to be all kinds to make this work and to get people to watch this and really, you know, latch onto it. First layer is, of course, to watch these videos and watch these films and take in the story and be part of it that way. We then have kind of the first interaction layer is liking, or it could be, you know, the videos themselves, the episodes themselves, or other people's auditions or posts that people make. Then we have Facebook comments, and these were also, I mean, not only part of the story. There were some Facebook comments that were actually included inside of these films or these episodes, but also kind of the conversation going on around this whole thing on the Facebook page and how people kind of interact and talk about Alex, because this was living on kind of a made up, but still it was living on Alex's own Facebook page, and that was kind of where this whole story actually started to grow. Next is, when you get into being more creative, is submitting photos. It's kind of the same setup as the casting videos, it's just that it's still image. But same kind of tonality to them. It's just photos of his diary where he uploads, Alex, the person, uploads images of himself. And then we get into kind of the top layer, and this is, of course, this is going to be like, you know, 10% or 5% of the viewers at most. People actually, you know, engaging, actually recording themselves and trying to act and perform in front of the camera. And then, of course, the ones that get chosen, who gets a new audition that gets kind of directed by Drake Doremus himself, you know, the director talking, you know, over Skype and giving that, you know, really, really close interaction.
Yeah. I hope we haven't confused you with all this information. I mean, it's a pretty complex process, and there's lots of people involved, lots of interests, lots of channels to reach out in. I mean, to create both awareness and engagement, and then a really nice sort of film production at the end, it's not that easy. We had 6 months, a little bit more than 6 months, which is a pretty generous time. Some would perhaps make a feature film in that time, but for us, this was a lot of things to consider, to make a client happy, to make Drake happy, to make everyone that was involved in this project happy. I think we're really happy with the result, the end result. It got a huge response from everyone on every market that it was aired on. And we believe that it has to do with, of course, the high level of production, Drake's vision, but also all these emotions that was generated in this project. I mean, people were really sharing their inner thoughts and feelings in front of the camera, and they allowed it to be part of this project, kind of ignoring that it was a branded content context. And media was also pretty overwhelmed with this project. They were reporting about it as entertainment rather than advertising. And that is an interesting intersection. It could be also dangerous. We have a responsibility in there as well towards, you know, users, regular people, brands, everyone involved. But if you make it honest and if you make it with passion, I think it's less reason for it to go wrong. Right now we have sort of like an interactive question back to you. We can either look at all these results that this campaign led to, I mean, rewards, views online, revenue and all that, or we can show you our latest trailer from our latest feature film, Gentleman. Oh, did someone say result? Ah, good. Okay, just a short note on that one. We work with a director called Mikael Marseman. He's a great director. He has been doing commercials for us, like classic TV commercials. He has done TV formats, like a quite successful TV series that was also interpreted into different countries and markets. And then he's also done feature films. This one, Gentleman, was launched not too long ago. It was aired at Toronto Film Festival. It's a quite complicated story, but has a huge production value. It's one of the biggest production in Sweden. And the story is based on a classic novel from a Swedish author called Claes Östergren. That's where we leave this presentation.
So first of all, thank you very much. And the first question comes from the audience via Twitter. There was a question about the budget of the Beauty Inside. Can you talk a bit about numbers, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the overall sort of budget was around 2.5 million euros, which is a generous amount of money for a commercial or for a commercial project. But it was also a 6 months long project. It was lots of people involved, and we also included some of the media budget in that budget.
Okay. If there are questions, oh yeah, there is a question already.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I thought it was incredibly interesting. I'm a writer and director, and I'm actually in the course Transmedia Director at this film school. So in theory, I get a diploma in Transmedia Director in a couple of years. And my vision is to be a director, to work as a storyteller and director, and on plus as well as a Transmedia Director. So I actually want to understand the storytelling of real time and of all this crazy shit, which is possible in this area. I've got 2 questions. First of all, like, I think real-time with horror is super boring. Like, I'm fed up watching any real-time stuff with horror or detective stories, and I think it's extremely interesting to combine real-time with comedy or to combine real-time with love story. So I think this is what you did with real-time. I mean, I already knew the project, but I think this is new. Like, this is interesting. And I mean, are there any books on real-time storytelling? Are there any blogs? Is there anything I could like get some information? Because I think this is like a brain fuck to even think how to tell a story in real time. So this is my first question. And my second question is, actually, I'm asking for advice from you as creatives, because I mean, you 2 are highly creative. And to be honest, I'm the only student at this film school who wants to be a director and a transmedia director, who actually wants to be a transmedia director. And this is one of the best film schools in Europe, and definitely the best in Germany. And so I'm fighting every day with that. I'm actually thinking out of the box all the time, because I'm pushing me out of my comfort zone, because I think I want to do innovative stuff and not repeating everything. Like, I don't want to do a documentary and then another documentary. Like, I think it's too boring. So I'm pushing myself every day, and I'm fighting with all these structures in this film school, which I think are harming my creativity. And on top of that, I'm also fighting with these mind patterns my fellow students have, which are really old-fashioned, and I just don't understand why they're doing kind of these boring stuff. Like, I don't understand this. So I'm thinking, maybe I should quit film school, maybe I should go to an agency, because they actually do interesting, innovative stuff. Like, they do interactive stuff, and I think this is the future. So I'm sorry to be so honest with everyone here in the room. I don't want to harm anyone. I mean, do your storytelling. My question is, what do you think about this whole thing? Like, what is your opinion? Like, you as creators, did you have same struggles at, I don't know, film school or wherever you went? Or I don't know what to do. Like, should I maybe go to an agency because they actually do interactive stuff, and here we don't very much?
I mean, to answer the first question, there are, of course, numerous books on the subject that are really theoretical and not really telling the story or telling the truth about now, because everything is changing, and that's the challenge too. I mean, the formats are changing, the channels are changing, what people are looking for are changing. So it's really hard to give you one single book or URL to find all these answers. I think the best way is, of course, to look at production companies like us, look at what's happening in Denmark, for example, or what's happening in the movie industry in Hollywood or the US. It's just keep experiencing and keep looking and keep trying, because that's the thing with these experiences. Since they're personal, you have to kind of get your head into it and almost try, experience it yourself and be part of it yourself to get the full. I mean, we've been trying to explain the beauty inside here, and it's kind of hard to give you the full feeling of it. So to that.
I also think that no matter whether you're doing classic filmmaking or as documentaries or feature films or branded content or short films, the goal should be to do very strong and emotional storytelling. And I mean, we're working in a business where it's about talking to segments of an audience. We're trying to find ways to certain people. And we have learned that the best way to do that is to understand the audience, first of all, and understand where they spend their time and what kind of content that is relevant to them. And of course, that is something that is driving a lot of the storytelling that we are creating. But at the end of the day, it's about creating really, really strong work.
Can you maybe talk a bit about the learnings from the Power Inside? Because I feel that the first project, the horror one, was a bit more, well, maybe we can say transmedia, transmedia, if this exists, because it was like a gamification kind of project, and it was a project which pretends to be something, because it pretends that there is somebody locked it away in a room, etc. And what I find amazing is that the beauty inside is kind of transmedia 2.0, I would say, because it doesn't pretend to be something. It's an open project. Everybody can participate. It's not a game someone should play. Can you just talk about what was the learning of the Power Inside, what you wanted to change for the next project?
I think that's exactly what we wanted to change, is to involve the audience at a deeper level, and not only having them as a joystick, kind of controlling the outcome of a story. Of course, that sounds good. It sounds nice that you invite the audience to, take power of the story, and then, it's up to you, solve this girl from being, I don't know, killed. But in the end, it's actually, that was the learning, is that you don't really engage people to the fullest level, and you don't involve them. That's the point of the, how to actually let people co-create pieces of the story, to be able to perform something or to give their own heart to it, rather than just, solving a puzzle. I mean, a part of the problem with the Power Inside was that the audience was actually faster than we expected. They solved all these puzzles, then kind of engaged really, really quickly. And so we struggled with kind of extending the story into the period we were looking at. I think I can remember it was a 6-day experience. And it was really hard for us to kind of hold back people, because they were faster than us and kind of solved all the issues and all the clues, which also made it kind of unnecessarily prolonged story.
Well, we have another question from the audience. I just saw a hand there in the back.
Yes, thank you for what you told us. I just wanted to ask if the link between transmedia storytelling and advertisement is always that big normally in the transmedia projects of other companies, as in your case, because I'm very fascinated by the possibilities of getting people engaged in a project. But on the other hand, it's for me to use my craft as a writer or to participate in something that is mostly to have profit for Toshiba or Intel. It's a little bit nightmarish, because I think I would like to do a project where people engage for social aspects or something. And I had the feeling that this girl who was in a way disappointed was also disappointed because she didn't know that it was mainly a project for as a brand or content brand. I don't know the exact term. So is the link between transmedia storytelling and advertisement so close always? So that would cause for me a less interest in this kind of telling stories in the future.
Well, I mean, you have two choices because marketing, advertising will always be there to serve purposes of brands to reach out and to sell their services or products. And either you do that good or you do that bad. It sounds pretty harsh, but I find that it's a big incitament in what I'm doing is to push that border and actually make something that feels relevant, even though the recipient is Intel and Toshiba.
But I would add to this question that for the first film, The Power Inside, the brand integration was, I felt it was like right in my face. It was like the center of the whole piece, and we even heard some laughs in the audience when the computer was described as the only way to connect to the world. And in the second project, it wasn't really in the center of the project. Can you give us any results or any feedback how the advertisement part, I mean, the companies were satisfied by these both two projects? I mean, because the second one feels more natural, less brand integrated. And I would say, I mean, for me, it would work better, but how did the partners see it?
I think, I mean, this is, I mean, the structure of a commercial production like this is a little bit different, with the stakeholders being, you know, the client on top, the agency in between, and then us as a production company. And it's a lot about handling those layers and the expectations in there. And I agree. I mean, the inside experience, the thriller one, is so much more in your face. It's like she's almost kind of, wow, I love this laptop. It's like candy to me. And in the beauty inside, it's much more of something just being there quite naturally. It's woven into the story quite nicely. The format of how people, you know, are able to interact, of these web diaries recorded by the computer. It's never really mentioned. It's never really kind of talked about in that sense. It's always carried around, that computer, but it's never been, you know, close up all the time of logo. And it's about, you know, trusting the director to treat this well. It's about the agency kind of trusting the director, and of course the client trusting the director, but also handling those and the discussions between director and agency, and that everybody sees it the same way and trust the story and trust the way that the story will come across.
Well, then thank you so much for presenting to us. Great project, The Beauty Inside. I have to say it's really an amazing transmedia idea, a truly social film. So thank you for being here and being our guests.
Thank you.